Turbulence. When he neared her home, it dawned on him that halfway to his destination, he hardly needed direction. He figured she lived less than 15 minutes from his cousin. The route was almost a straight line. The ease of the trip made it seem so familiar. I must have been on the same road earlier. That's right, this is the road we were on going back to cousin's house, kinda close. He knew the general direction, but he still needed directions to her home. He texted her as much, and she replied with a pin to her location. When he sent the location to the Maps app on his phone, the directions he was given would have had him on a 1-hour detour. The local roads have yet to be mapped by the big tech companies, so he had to switch to satellite view in order to see the digitally unmapped dirt road that led directly to Lily's location. I can figure the rest out once I get to that road. The house was situated behind a thick of trees, some palm, some coconut, some banana, and quite a few with foliage and fruit he hadn't seen before. The home was almost hidden from the road, as was most of the homes in the area. He had a little trouble finding it once he met the end of the road, and as he rode up to the muted gray mid-sized, 2-story home, he could hear the ocean and what he thought sounded like rain. The front door swung open then, as he approached the home, and a sparkling silhouette sashayed onto its threshold. It was Lily. Tiny glints of moonlight danced about her legs. Still wet with droplets of water from the pool, he surmised. Her skin, much of which her itty-bitty black bikini did not cover, shimmered with a healthy, shea butter, pearlescent sheen. "Hurry up, get inside, I want to get back in the water," she commanded. He parked the bike not far from the front door and followed her inside. Her home was surprisingly cool despite the island's humid Caribbean nights. He did not notice an air conditioner. Candles lit, soft compa music playing. She led him by the hand through the home and to the backyard, to her pool. He found that it was not just a pool, though. It was half grotto, half mountainside infinity pool. Her home sat near the edge of an oceanside mountain cliff. Carved into the edge of the cliff was her grotto. A small waterfall fed into a cobalt blue pool. That pool then poured off the side of the cliff and into the ocean. He wondered where the water came from if the ocean was below. He didn't notice any rivers nearby. The water fell from a staggered stack of cliffs a few meters above their heads. That explained the rain he thought he heard. Such a beautiful island. Such a beautiful home. So lucky to have this all to herself. Near the edge of the pool, sitting on a large flat stone, he found the chilled bottle of wine, 3/4 empty then, and a half-finished bowl of fresh fruit. "Take off your clothes. Get into the water with me." She dipped her legs back into the water. He did as she commanded. Leaving on his boxer briefs, he sat next to her and dipped his legs into the pool. They sat by the pool and talked into the wee hours, sipping the last of the wine and feeding each other fruit. Lily smiled, staring into his eyes. He knew he should kiss her, but wasn't sure if it would be well received. So soon, anyway. He hesitated. As if she sensed his doubt, she placed her hand on his. "Kiss me." He heard her voice, but her lips never parted. His eyes narrowed in confusion, not knowing if he was that inebriated. Had he actually heard her voice aloud, but somehow missed her mouth moving? Still holding his hand, she slid her petite dark cherry-brown body into the pool. Near that side of the grotto, the water was waist-deep. She placed her other hand on his other hand and pulled him in after her. He followed. She mirrored her hands in front of his, her open palms to his own. She smiled all the while, never breaking eye contact. As he followed her further into the pool, the water swallowed her up to her ribs, then to her bikini top. The water was to her neck before it reached his chest. When it did reach his chest, she had to paddle to stay afloat. He found his confidence and pulled her chest to his. When their skin touched, each felt the other's heart beat. His hand found its way to a cowrie shell sewn to her black bikini strap. He tugged on it and unraveled the knot behind her neck. Holding her with one arm, he lowered the top to her waist with the other. He tugged on another cowrie shell and undid a knot on her hip. He found yet another knot on the other hip. He loosed that too. And with that she leaned in and kissed him. her bikini floating to the far edge of the pool, then off to the side of the cliff, with full rounded lips. Her kisses were generous and a bit untamed. He could feel her saliva all over his mouth as he kisses her back. He enjoyed it. Their kissing became more animalistic then, heavy breathing followed by heavy petting. A lewd chant made of grunts and moans and panting filled the air. They kissed for a long while, bobbing up and down in the crystal clear water. From the beads of water on their bodies, moonlight danced and sparkled like microscopic stars. They stayed like that for a while before Lily pulled away from him. Taking Premier by the hand, she guided him back toward the shallow end of the pool. They climbed out, and she immediately pulled his wet briefs down to his ankles, and he climbed out of those too. They were both naked then. She led him back up the half-flight of stony steps. Again, through the backyard. Back through the living room, then up the stairs into her bedroom. No time was wasted, no hesitations made. She laid him down on her bed. She mounted him. She rode him. Slowly, taking her time to give him every inch of her depth. Rolling her hips to the compa music still playing downstairs, he joined her rhythm. She leaned into him. He didn't hear it so much as he felt the rhythm. Looking up at her large, brown, upturned eyes, her eyelids were low. Big brown bedroom eyes. He thought for a moment they looked more feline than human. Then his eyes began to roll into his skull as she leaned over, onto his body. Her breasts pressed against his chest, peppering licks and kisses on his neck and shoulders. Her hand held down his face. She enjoyed him, dominated him in that moment, took what she wanted, rocked her hips up and down his lap more vigorously then. She rose up, arched her back, took her breasts into her own hands, circled her nipples. She tilted her head to the side, her eyes closed. Tiny sparks crackled between them. When she grabbed his hands and placed them on her chest, tiny arcs of electricity came and went where he touched her. She's so sexy. I want to be with her always. I don't want to be anywhere else. I need her. I can't be anywhere but here. His stream of thought degraded into baser instinct. Feels good, don't stop. She opened her eyes. Where there should have been two large brown irises, there was a black emptiness that seemed endless. She continued the rhythm of her hips. Still inside of her, her warmth held him closely. Nothingness, two black holes, where her big, pretty brown eyes should have been. She continued to enjoy him. A lascivious smile broke across her face. She bit her bottom lip, soaked his lap with her wetness. The black holes pulled in his attention. Gravity wells pulling on his soul. He could not look away, nor did he want to. Pull me in. I need you. I just want to exist here with you. It was then that he noticed the glow radiating off of her body and the warmth of it. She was flush. Her deep chocolate cherry completion radiated with an iridescent underglow. You. He could hardly speak. Hot. He finished between heavily labored breaths. He was drained, energy sapped. He felt himself giving in to the weakness, allowing her to take control of him, all of him, to take all of him. It was masochistic bliss. He blushed, he smiled deliriously. Her eyes, still hollow and empty, seemed normal to him. He no longer feared them somehow. He wished nothing but to be taken into them as she continued to rock her hips back and forth and up and down his lap, more vigorous and more wild. Love. You. He breathed the words more than he spoke them. That seemed to send her over the edge. Again she arched her back. Her skin glowed dimly but brighter than it had moments earlier. He was ice cold. Her body was hot to the touch. On his lap, her skin and her wetness, a pool of tepid water dripping onto the bed. A passionate howl of satisfaction left her and filled the room. Premier joined her seconds later. Her climax aroused him, and like a chain reaction activated his own. She collapsed onto his chest. Both breathed heavily, exhausted. Premier felt drained to his very soul, his head light and senses dull, his mind a bowl of mush. He thought he heard her speaking to him, but all he heard was her sweet accent, but it was far and muffled, like listening to a jazz. A cappella, underwater. He heard the melody, but could not hear the words. His vision blurred. his eyes lowered to almost closed. The room blurred around him, muddied together into a vivid wash of earth-toned watercolors. She slid off of him. As her warmth left him, he felt the cold. He wanted to reach for her, but his arm wouldn't move. A glowing, reddish, chocolatey, blurry blob moved away from him, slow and sad. He assumed it was sad. He couldn't see her, but he felt her. She's sad, scared, terrified. Why is she leaving me? He wanted to shout for her. Why are you leaving me? His voice wouldn't leave his lips. Just then, as Lily's silhouette shrank into a far corner of the room, another silhouette appeared at the other side. The room felt cold with her warmth gone. Colder still, as the new silhouette approached him. It crept slowly toward him into his field of vision. It was within arm's reach when he began to make it out. Haggard, gaunt, long-limbed, skinny all over but for its torso, a bulged belly, and what looked to be sagging breasts with no visible nipples. As it swayed nearer, stringy white hair swayed side to side. Its three-fingered hands folded together, up to its chest. It smiled at him, the way a child would smile at cake or a predator smiled at prey. The hag loomed over him for a moment, then lifted one long leg and planted an icy soft foot on Premier's chest. He suddenly found it hard to breathe. The hag softly placed her other foot on his chest, then sat. And there it sat, perched just below his chin, hands still folded together. It salivated over him, its hunger plain. One long, bony hand moved from its chest to caress Premier's cheek. The hag caressed him same as Lily did earlier. His breath was even more shallow then. The hag didn't seem to weigh anything, seemed too lithe to stay his breath, but stay his breath it did. His breath was barely a breeze and his body frozen. With all his will, he wanted to throw the thing off of him, but his body would not obey. The hag grabbed his face, forcing him to look into its empty, beady white eyes. It leaned into him and began to suck at the air between them. It sipped on his soul. He then felt the little heat that he had left begin to leave his body. The little energy he possessed left with it. The bliss he felt with Lily, that was gone too. Consciousness began to shrink to a close. All in one instant, Premier felt a rush of energy, and he instantly sprung up at the waist. The action threw the hag across the room. Air rushed into his chest. Consciousness burned into his mind. Icy air prickled his naked body as what he believed to be life itself had been pulled from him, and then reversed. Life, sudden and forceful, permeated his body. He leapt from the bed in a howl. What the fuck? His breath was still labored, but grown instantly strong. He gasped as he backed away from the hag. It was shocked by the violent tossing. When it rose from the floor, he noticed one of the hag's hand had gone missing. A black, thick goo dripped evenly where the three-fingered hand had been. As it rose to its feet, it screamed and grunted, a guttural language that Premier sensed were full of ancient curses. It turned its attention to the far corner of the room. To his surprise, Lily stood there in that corner, holding a large, ornate machete. "Run!" Lily shouted at him desperately. "Run now! Go!" She stood in what appeared to be a fencing pose. He noticed then the black goo as it dripped from the ornate blade's edge. "Al!" Premier, still confused by all that had just happened, and so was stupefied. Lily's eyes were still depthless and black. When she blinked her large black eyes, the candlelight that reflected in them flitted in and out of existence. Her eyes, that was real. The hag, so engulfed in its anger by the dismemberment, swiped at Lily with its long bony arm. Premier, more conscious than before but just as naked, hadn't noticed before the talons at the end of the hag's 3 bony fingers. The talons clanked and screeched at the blade of the machete. The sound jolted him from his amazement, and he went running out of Lily's bedroom and down the steps. On the way to the front door, he remembered he was nude and quickly ran back to side of the pool. He grabbed only his jeans and juggled himself into each leg as best he could. He stopped at the back door and thought it best to run around the home, then back through it. He found the bike where he left it earlier. He leapt onto it, nearly tipped it into the dirt, when he realized he didn't have the keys. They were still in the house. Still mounted on the bike, he contemplated leaving on foot. What if Lily loses the fight, and that thing comes after me? How fast is it? He wanted to go back inside to find the keys to his cousin's bike. Just then, a soul-vibrating screech came from the small handmade home. Then nothing. The jungle fell quiet. Shit. She's dead, he thought to himself. He dropped the bike and began to run all the way back to his cousin's village. She's dead, Lily. Her eyes. What was she doing to me? I liked it. I love her. I should go back for her. He shook his head. What the fuck am I thinking? He thought out loud. How can I love her? I don't know her. I don't know what she is. And that other thing, what was that? His mind raced as he ran down the dirt road. Did she set me up? A shadow fell to the dirt before him. His own shadow. A light was coming up the road. He heard an engine then. A two-piston engine. A single light. A motorcycle. He debated flagging the rider for help, but thought it might not be a good idea. Monsters come in all shapes, sizes, and species. Most of them human. He decided he'd made enough friends in Haiti. I'll keep running. He made sure to step aside to give the biker plenty of room. But then the engine revved down. He heard the rider shift into first. Premier, get on. Quick! It was Lily on his cousin's bike. Her eyes, big, bright, and brown, even in the dead of night her eyes shone, reflecting the light from the motorcycle, reflecting light from the moon and the stars. Almost cat-like. Her eyes. He jumped back when she extended her hand. She was dead. Her eyes. Nothing but black. Did she set me up? Premier, get on, she commanded. Her expression was desperate. Blood dripped down her arm, both red and black. Premier, I'm sorry I lied to you, but you need to trust me now. I slowed it down, but I can't kill it. Not by myself. I need your cousin's help. Let's go. Now. His head spun. So much has just happened to him. He had no time to process it. He was in survivor mode. What are you? How do you know my cousin? What was that? What did you do to me? Why do I love? Premier. Lily leaned toward him with unnatural speed, her face within a foot of his. She blinked her eyes, and when they opened, two pools of darkness reflected Premier's image. His body stiffened, then relaxed. Without blinking or breaking eye contact, she commanded him to mount the bike. He did so without protest, unblinking. I'm sorry, Premier, we don't have time for this. I'll explain everything. Once we're safe, I promise. She watched as tears ran down his face. I'm sorry, she said. Safrina woke from sleep with sudden alertness. Jean, get up. Something is here. Without another word between them, he reached under the bed and produced an ornate machete for his own. Its blade was adorned with numerous symbols. Voodoo veves all over the blade except for the razor-sharp edge. Safrina reached under her side of the bed and produced a knapsack. She wrapped it around her back and followed Jean out of their master bedroom, then into the hallway. They found Redline leaning out from her bedroom door. Go to your sibling's bedroom and lock the door, Safrina commanded her. She did so, quietly. Safrina and Jean moved swiftly down the stairs to the front door. He opened it, and down the road they watched as Jean's motorcycle came up to the house with Lily and Premier. Lily stopped the bike a few yards from the house and fell to her knees, dropping Premier to the ground as a result. She was in physical pain, Premier saw as he snapped out of her trance and jumped to his feet. Still weak from their earlier encounter, but he found a bit of a second wind. Premier, come inside now, Jean said to him firmly. Nah. Premier, feeling more clear then, walked over to the house. He noticed Vevs glowing all over. They pulsed with dark, vibrating light. When he reached his cousin's stoop, he turned to Lily to see her doubled over in the dirt next to the bike that laid flat in the dirt. He saw that there were Vivs and wards that glowed on nearby homes as well, though not as vibrant. The wards, the Vivs, is hurting her. What the fuck is all this? What are you doing here, Elwa? Safrina commanded. I need your help. Please, we don't have a lot of time. Lily managed between short-labored breaths. Safrina's face twisted in genuine confusion. And why would we ever help you? In fact, we are well within our rights to kill you. Yes, true, but what is coming is far worse than I could ever be. Your wards won't stop. Not even slow. You need me. To kill her, to kill her. You need me. Before either Safrina or John could answer her, Premier cut in. She's right, I think. He turned to his cousins. I don't know what it was. A tear fell from his cheek and caught him off guard for a moment. Recalling the event struck him to his soul. He collected himself and continued. It was not like her. He waved at Lily. It was trying to kill me. But not just me, my soul. It was like it was killing me from the inside out. With that, he stared off into space, trying to reconcile what he had just said. What is it? Safrina asked Lily. Hag, a sleep hag. Lily still under the magical pressures of the wards. That's it? Safrina said, almost smiling. I don't need your help with a hag. This one, you do.